gotten drunk on that time. No, yeah, no, we were on our way to the drive-in, and the police pulled us over. It was in the car with Bob McGrail's older brother Bill was driving, and Tom Duran was in the car, and Bob McGrail, and I think Art Levasseur. I can't remember for sure. But we got pulled over for not having taillights. We had a case of beer, and nobody was. I think Bill McGrail was 17, so nobody was old enough to have it. And they took us to the police station, and the police were just, you know, I think I had something on my wallet that said that Pear was a policeman, and they were really razzing me about how I was going to get. And then everybody else, they got to go home. You know, their parents just said, send them home. But Pear came and got me, and my family, oh man. Yeah. And I think probably the hardest time he ever hit me was there in the police station. He was, I was probably had one of these stupid smirks on my face, and he was rubbing his chin, and I was very close to him. And he hauled off and whacked me in the ear with the back of his hand. And I'll tell you, that must have been something they taught him in the police academy, because I'll tell you, that'll knock you to your knees like that, because it's the bone of the hand and the bone of your head getting smashing this soft part of your ear. It's very effective, leaves no marks. I remember the policeman say, sir, don't do that in here. If you want to do that, take him outside. So, that's a good story. I was living there. I wasn't paying any rent. I had a job. I was between high school and my first year of college. And Pear would tell me that it was time to get a haircut, and I just kind of. And then he told me, I think that day that you're going to have a haircut. I wanted a haircut by the end of the day. I kind of saw what was coming, and I prepared to leave. I packed up some stuff to go, and I kind of wanted to go, and I was kind of afraid to go, and they kind of forced the issue at that point.
18 by 30
so,
inch.
Actually, at the time, I think it almost seemed like somebody else's life was like unraveling in front of me. You know, it's kind of like how you kind of like stand outside and see something going on. It was almost like that was happening with me in my own life. And it's not the only time. There have been other times when I've forgotten, well, who is this happening to? You know, it's sometimes hard for me to believe that I'm the same person I was then, because then I hated chores. He had to keep after me for any kind of chore, you name it. But now, like domestic chores, I actually like them. It's kind of bizarre. You know, they're kind of what absorbs my energy. So I see myself a lot like him in ways that I didn't expect, and I don't know if they're genetic or learned. Like, I'm very fidgety. I have a real hard time sitting still, which seemed like him. You know, he didn't like to be. I mean, relaxing is almost an oxymoron to him, you know, and I think it is to me too. Retiring in order to relax was not what I had in mind, and I don't think I relaxed very well, actually, and I don't think he did either. So maybe that's why I drank. I don't actually remember him picking them up, but I was, 8 years old. I was in 2nd grade. He came in the fall, I remember that. And it's odd because that's the same year, unless it was the 3rd grade because I was in the 3rd grade. Because I was in 2nd grade when Ma's mother died. And we went to sit-downs for a while, and then we went to Uncle Louis and stayed with Uncle Louis and Aunt Peggy while they went to the funeral in Kentucky. And we wouldn't have had the dog by then, because the dog, I don't know where the dog would have been. He would have been a puppy. So maybe we got the dog a year later. So, I don't know. Do you remember it? Do you remember getting the dog?
No, I just remembered wanting to call the dog something other than Grumpy. I think I wanted to call it Blackie. That's all I know. Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very unusual name for a dog. I don't
Yeah.
think I've ever known another dog named Grumpy.
And what do you remember about why he was grumpy and what kind of
Because
dog
of
he
the way
was?
he looked. I think Johnny actually named him Grumpy. And we just took the name that she gave him.
What did you think of him when we got him? Do you remember what your impressions were?
I was very happy to have him. You know, little kids got to have a best friend. Bobby Humbert was my best friend. Although he used to beat the hell out of me. Fairly regular basis, bloody my nose, and, you know. But I know the Bumgartens were kind of odd. I remember right near the end there, Ma said that they were swingers, which, you know, in the late 50s would have been really quite something. I mean, still be quite something, but in the late 50s it was probably pretty avant-garde. And looking back at everything I know about them now, it kind of fits that they really were. And then on the other side were the, when I was little, were the Strathers. And he was a captain in the Army Reserves, and I don't know what he did for a living. But they were from North Carolina, I think. And you know, eventually they moved, and Rudy and Gertrude moved in next door. Do you remember them?
Myrtle.
Myrtle, right. Gertrude, Myrtle and Rudy. Our house was much more social than the way I live now. There were always people coming in and out. And, you know, Ma and Per were pretty sociable people compared to me anyway. You know, I keep pretty much to myself. So our house was, you know, lively places, I remember. Oh God, you know, we always had people coming over regularly, like the bread man. The bread man, we were. Ma and Per were pretty sociable with all the service people, the bread man. I remember the cleaners. His name was Du Bois, and we used to hang around with their family. And I remember the milkman. I don't know that he ever came over for any social occasions, but they were very friendly with him. And, you know, do you remember any of that? Or? I don't know. I think the acquaintance was first made because they were delivery people at the house, because there were, you know, everybody had delivery people back then. And, but I, you know, honestly, I don't know for sure which came first. My guess is they were delivery people, but I could be wrong. Maybe they knew them, and you know, Ma and Per knew them from something else. I do remember the cleaning guy, Du Bois, who was really into horses, and I remember him wanting to talk to Ma's mother because she knew a lot about horses, and he, you know, he wanted to bet on horses. That's what he did. So,
I'm excited too, and I'm even there.
I remember Jerry Northcutt visiting, and we were all up at Rouge Pools, Brennan Pools in Rouge Park, and the police horses were up there, and I remember him taking his hand and lifting up the lip of the horse and pointing out his teeth and saying that you could tell how old the horse was by the color of his teeth.
What do you remember about Rouge Pools?
That's where I learned to swim. I didn't consider it a dangerous place at the time, but it probably was dangerous for some things. I lost my bike there. I remember I rode my brand new Evans bike up there with Chris Travolsi, and instead of putting it in the ticketed park thing for bikes, where you took a token and came back and got your bike, Chris told me to just set it up against the tree, it would be all right. But it was gone when we came back. Oh boy, that was a bummer for a lot of years.
I seem to remember that.
Yeah. So, yeah, you know, I remember the first time I went to Rouge Pools, I couldn't get in because I had a scab on my knee. You know, if you had visible scabs or sores, you couldn't go in the pool. So that actually was quite an incentive from then on to try to keep from getting scraped up or, you know, injured. Just, you know, when you're a little kid, you don't really care too much about that kind of thing. Like you're worried about the way you look. But there was a reason at that point to think about it.
So go back to that song and tell me about that song a little more.
Up on the Tennessee border?
Yeah. Do you remember any more?
Up on the Tennessee border. Yeah, Perry used to like to sing it. He whistled it. I remember one time we were at the store and there was a guy, somebody at the meat counter whistling. And, you know, I didn't think too much of it, but I remember Perry leaning over and saying the guy couldn't whistle for shit. That was funny. And, of course, we have the encyclopedias, and I used to like to read those.
Tell us about the encyclopedias.
Well, with Funk and Wagnall encyclopedias, I don't remember exactly how we ended up with them, if we got them in installments or, because I know they sold them at the stores and the grocery store, but I don't remember if we got them all at once or if we got them in dribs and drabs. But I remember I would read articles in them, you know, just flip through them until something caught my eye. Nothing very complicated. If you tried to read something complicated in the encyclopedia, like atomic theory or something, it was way beyond me. So it was probably mostly historical facts, something that you could just repeat, you know, read and repeat. That's probably what.
You ever remember Mom or Dad reading?
I remember Pear reading. I remember Ma reading too, actually. She liked to read trashy novels. And Pear used to read the newspaper. And I remember when he was, when I was real young, he would write up reports at home for work and stuff like that. He had an old Underwood typewriter. And I don't really know what he was writing, but occasionally he would use it. And it looked like he was going really fast to me, but I was a little kid. So.